how people typically process trauma and deal with grief, they survive through it. And so with that, they pick up things that help them live until the next day. They don't pick up things that help them, mature mentally or emotionally. We just figure out how to live until the next day. And I draw the parallel with a lot of those cases, the hoarder in those homes.
Welcome to Guards Down. Join your host, Greg C. Washington, as he explores how people from various backgrounds have overcome bouts with trauma and complicated grief. If you're stuck, know someone who might be, or want to be in a position to help someone, you're in the right place. We can't wait to share the tips and tricks we've learned on our journey to healing and putting our guards down.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the next episode of Guards Down. I have with me a very special guest and a good friend of mine, Myea Rice. Myea, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing well. I can't complain. It rained a little bit here in New Orleans, but you know what they say about the rain, right? Makes the flowers grow later. So
Yeah.
I appreciate you coming on to the show. You're a graduate from West Point, a quartermaster officer that went logistics, and originally from Mobile, Alabama?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, you know, Mardi Gras is best here in New Orleans, just so, you know, we put that out there.
I'll let you claim it.
Indeed. Okay, well, since you know you ain't gonna fight me back on that one, you know, we'll get started. Well, look, of course, you know the show is about raising awareness for complicated grief and PTSD, and our whole objective is to save a life. We can share our stories and our experiences and our motivations to give someone some tools to put in their toolkit, so that you know they can go off and combat, you know, whatever more injuries that they have, so that you know they can live to see another day and learn to have this subjective well-being about, you know, their lifestyle. Right. So getting into it, tell us about yourself.
Well, first, I do want to say thank you for having me. I'm excited to contribute to something that I consider very near and dear to my heart. A lot of people take for granted the need to build strength in the emotional and mental departments. And what you are doing with Guards Down is hands down amazing. Continue what you do, and I'll do my best to help feed into that. So getting into a little bit about me, as you said, I'm originally from Mobile, Alabama. I come from a family of 5. My mother had 5 children, 4 of which were boys. I'm dead in the middle. Ended up heading to West Point 2007 and ended up graduating in 2011. As you said, I commissioned as a quartermaster officer. Moved forward to Fort Bliss, Texas, where I served with the 4th Armored Brigade Combat Team, as well as the 11th 88 Brigade. The 11th 88 Brigade is where I completed my first operational tour. That was 12 months in Qatar and Bahrain. Ended up moving on to Fort Riley, Kansas, where I served with the 2nd Armored Brigade Combat Team, whom I deployed to my 2nd operational tour. That's into Europe. We were in Germany, Poland, Bulgaria, Romania, and we had a grand old time. That's where I completed my 18-month command. Came back, moved on to the 1st Sustainment Brigade, the 1st Infantry Division Sustainment Brigade, where I deployed to Afghanistan. I returned and am currently located in Montgomery, Alabama, as a part of the Army's Training with Industry program, sort of like an internship where I get to learn about logistics on the civilian side, take some best practices from both sides, implement them, learn, and continue to develop myself professionally before I head forward to Fort Lee, Virginia. So that's what I got going on right now. I have a dog about 2 hours away from home, and I got to enjoy the world's greatest Mardi Gras celebration, um, especially in the United States, contrary to what you said earlier. So
Indeed, indeed. And so for all y'all out there that don't know, there's a long-standing rivalry between Mobile and New Orleans as far as who recognizes Mardi Gras and who has the best one. So yet to been to Mobile to experience, so I gotta get out there and see. I do.
definitely take the children. It's definitely family friendly. I recommend it to everyone who has family, especially younger family members. So definitely say do that, and you'll still get your adult fix in the nightlife. But the daytime is definitely for the kids. And like the great philosopher and theologian we know is Trick Daddy, Trick love the kids. So yeah, I definitely say check it out and then let me know afterwards.
Got you. I got you. Okay. Well, look, you gave a lot in the beginning. So you grew up with three other brothers. This is four of y'all, and
Or,
five. Okay, so four brothers. It's five of y'all, and you made your way into West Point and crushed it, and then commissioned and deployed. Um, so, I mean, like, talk to us about that. Like, growing up, what was it like being the only girl? I'm quite sure you had to beat up some of your brothers and outdo them. And watch this, so
it was definitely something I thought was cooler. It became less cool the older I got. But yeah, being dead in the middle, you do pay attention to a lot of things. And because I have two brothers older than me, and two younger, of course. And man, there's always this. Boys aren't always nice. I'll say that. Not young boys. They aren't always nice. I mean, there's times where you just get made fun of for not being able to or function in life the same way. But it makes you tough, makes you resilient to a lot of things. But my second oldest brother, I'll say, he definitely set the standard for us. I look up to him a lot to this day. He was the first one of us to go to college, and he's a graduate from Morehouse College. Fast forward right now, he has his PhD. After he obtained his PhD, he decided to obtain his law degree, and now he's starting his own law firm, and we only have 4 years difference between the two of us. So he's always been somebody I looked up to. Never was the one that got into like the fights with me. That was probably more so for me and my two younger brothers, just because after a certain age, I just stopped outgrowing my brothers. So you can't beat them up as much. But there's a lot that him being extremely influential, he was extremely influential in a lot of my decisions, even when I was scared to make them. And so he was the one behind the scenes, really, really pushing for me to apply to as many programs as possible when it came to college. And for me, he's always been that person that goes, take the chance. Even when you have 50 reasons to doubt yourself, take the chance, you never know. And that's what West Point was for me. It was a chance to take. I had an instructor in high school who recommended I apply, even when I didn't know anything about the institution. And I recall even being, I was so discouraged that I stopped applying halfway through. And I remember one of the admissions captains called me and was just like, you need to finish your file. You have a strong file, I need you to finish it. You got a week. And shout out to my mom. First and I have a car at the time. We hustled the doctor's appointments, get the physicals, getting everything mailed in on time. But I'll say growing up in that environment, between my my second oldest brother and my mom being able to make things happen with very little resources, man, it made pushing through anything seem easy. It makes it look easy. So that's pretty much how that shaped my
Yeah.
transition into and out of the academy.
And so now, being into the military and on active duty, how has it been traveling the world and getting to see other countries and cultures?
Oh man, it
Compared to you growing up.
it's been great. I will say that. Once I left, I was terrified on my first deployment. But I remember getting there, and I think that was the last time I thought I would miss home. And not to bash home, because I love everything that created me in Mobile, but there was a sense of perspective I don't think I would have gotten had I stayed close to home. And I say that about even when I just left to go to New York. But there's a general respect that I've developed for other people's lives and other people's beliefs in other people's cultures that sincerely helped me to not get so, what do you call it? Lack of a better term, get so offended or get so put off by the differences in our culture. There's a huge respect. And I will say it was granted to me first. Me being an outsider, me having walked in, there was this welcoming that I received being in almost every country I had been in, especially on those operational deployments. Afghanistan, not so much, because we just didn't get to interact with the population in the same way. But definitely for the operational side.
Yeah. Okay. And so I like how you spoke with, about your brother, and he would tell you to take the chance. That's a very good, a good perspective when you're sitting here thinking about the options that you have in life and, wondering and doubting. So your brother sounds real cool. So when you look at growing up, dealing with trauma and grief, and then in the military, dealing with, trauma and grief, both directly and also around you and supporting your soldiers. How do you feel about that? Like, what was your experience?
Woo. So I'll speak to this through like kind of phases. There was a phase where you don't really know that you have experienced certain levels of trauma, especially during your childhood. And a great deal of individuals think that you have to go through some level of combat before people acknowledge the trauma that you have. So there was that phase. I walked around and I don't think I understood why the world was the way it was to me. But then there was a phase where when you don't acknowledge some of your trauma, things kind of just explode. They kind of spill out involuntarily. And that's the phase I had gone through myself. And at that point, when I identified that things were occurring underneath the surface of what people could see, I had to go seek counsel. I had no other choice. And I still seek counsel to this day, but yes, that was that phase. And then the next phase I moved into, without going into too much detail yet, the next phase I moved into was being able to identify that with my formation. Specifically, when I was in company command, I commanded in a support company in a field artillery battalion. And a lot of times what happens is the bulk of the diversity comes from that support company's formation compared to a lot of times the field artillery battalion as a whole. And so a lot of times we get a lot more just mixing of cultures, mixing of problems, things explode a little bit more than, say, a formation that isn't as diverse. That was a challenge. However, one thing I've always been proud of is being able to identify it before it came to the point of UCMJ. Um, it was always this thing. I always told every soldier, if they need to take a knee, take it. And I held every non-commissioned officer and officer in my formation to that, to not hold that against that soldier and let them know that that was a resource that is available to them without any judgment. And I attribute that to knowing that I've had to, again, seek assistance outside of myself, outside of my family, and outside of my normal support group. I had to go seek professional assistance. And so for that formation, I think that I impacted. I know that I decreased the amounts of administrative actions that could have occurred during my tenure there. So,
No, I like that. And so just to go back, you know, this three-phase part, when you listen to it, and we'll have to break it down for the non-veterans that are listening. And so, you know, we have the crawl, walk, run in the military. And then you also look at your life progression. So where you as a child are learning about the world around you because you were saying you didn't understand, you know, what was going on and what the world was and why they were acting or doing, you know, what it was. So understanding the world around you. And then the second part is directly, you know, the trauma that's being dealt to you directly and acknowledging and understanding that. And then once you elevate and, you know, you kind of gain that ground, now the leadership portion to help the people around you. So, you know, I like how you put that in the part when it comes to being a leader and having an open ground in the sense of, you know, soldiers being able to come to you and putting it out there just to, you know, kind of set the tone for the climate or the command climate that you wanted to have to say, you know, if you need to take the knee, take it. And ensure that it's not something that won't be held against you. And so, I mean, that's pretty neat. That's, right. So explain to everybody, if you need to take the knee, take it.
So one way I convey it to, I'll convey it to two different groups. The first group within the Army, I'll tell you, I always tell them there's this lyrics to this song. You may know the lyrics to the song, but there's the lyrics go, the Army goes rolling along. And they always chuckle. It kind of diffuses a lot of the tension they have when they go, I need help. I can't be here, or I got this going on at home. Once I diffuse it that way, I follow up and go, hey, it's not to say that I don't consider you a necessary person in this formation. It's just we will figure it out while you need to go and reset. So a lot of times people place so much stuff above them. They forget that there's still this potentially compounding problem that's happening in the background. And so I see that a lot with a lot of service members, and the way I translate that to my friends and my family, I go, hey, you know, not only do I consider you a family member, especially a conversation I just recently had, you're not just family, you're my friend. And if you need somebody to like step in and go, hey, I watch my niece for the day. You know, that's why my nails are polished. My niece polished my nails yesterday. But, you know, just kind of give them some relief to go, hey, I need to reset, because once things like children come here, you don't get afforded the opportunity to go, let me go take care of myself now. So I tell my friends that, in the sense that I hope that they take me seriously and understand, like, if that means I need to take something off of you, or if I need to just listen, I'll be there for that, because I understand how critical it is to, one, not be heard, and two, not feel like you have the space to reset. So it's all about giving everybody that space to go, hey, you got the time, here are the resources, take that knee, reset, so you can come back out 100%. I can't do much with you can do something with somebody who's at 50%, but imagine what you can do with someone who's at 100%. So.
Yeah. And I like that. And it kind of talks to purpose. And
Mm-hmm.
being a soldier, being an officer, being in the military in general, you're given this very great responsibility and purpose, given your rank and also your MOS and what your job is. And so I know a lot of us take it to heart because the military, they break you down, then they build you back up into our culture.
Mm-hmm.
That you should be a part of. And so these values are ingrained in you. This work ethic is ingrained in you, and the esprit de corps, that family cohesiveness is ingrained in you as well. And that same thing that you would get from playing a sport, where you don't want to let the other people down, so you just keep pushing on. And so to be able to say that, take the knee, the Army goes running along, we'll figure it out. Not that we don't need you or that, you're not important, but take the time to reset because we need you at 100%, if we're going to continue to fight. And I'd much rather have you take the time now to get yourself right versus being at 50 or 75% and making a mistake that could, hurt others.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely agree with that. I do. I hear you, girl. Look, you gave me talk about already. That's all right. Okay, well, let me ask you this. Growing up, did your parents or the people around you teach you how to deal with trauma and grief?
Oh man. So without even like sugarcoating it, I'm gonna say absolutely not. Absolutely not. There were a lot of things, look back, I have a lot of grace looking back at that circumstance, for either one of my parents to have dealt with, but specifically my mother. But yes, I would say no. When things are moving at you so fast in a lot of under-resourced communities like the one I came from, exposed to a lot of negative things like a high crime rate and things like that, there's a lot to process as a parent. So I look at it now at this age, there's a level of grace. And a lot of times, a lot of people don't have the time to turn around and go, here's a good example for how to deal with trauma, because it's coming at you day after day after day. And that's something that continues to like fuel the passion in me to continue to pour back to the community, especially the community I came from, just because there aren't very many resources out there to show you, hey, it's okay to have the emotions about this. So this is what we need to do with it, with those emotions. And this is how we're going to move forward now that we've identified whatever that is, whether it be anxiety, whether it be grief, whether it be, just overall anger, identifying it. A lot of times things happen so quickly, you don't even have the time to go, wait, my feelings were hurt. Or wait, that didn't do very much for me. It's just going so fast. I mean, even children, they get faced with decisions all the time, especially when coming out of high school. They got their decision to what college they're going to go to, what program they're going to jump into as far as sports or academics. It's just 50 million questions at a time. No one turns around and goes, how do you feel? All right. And when if they happen to be able to, or if they happen to be given the platform to go, I don't feel so great. Well, you got to start at that point unpacking. Why don't you feel so great? And a lot of times people don't start with that. How are you feeling? Emotion. And that's something I'll say I would love to be able to facilitate in a much larger group than just my friends and their children, or my brothers and their children. I would like to be able to spread the wealth, because it's something that's critical. We're still going to be humans. with or without the success, and we're still going to have feelings about it. So in the meantime, we need to learn how to manage those feelings and process it properly. So answer your question, no, I did not. Do I know now? Yes. Am I still learning? Absolutely. Like I told you, I still see counsel to this day. I think I have an appointment next week. So.
Indeed. No, and I appreciate you sharing that. And the part that you say, you're still learning leads us into, like a good space. So understanding what you've been through, growing up and then being in the military, what were, well, before we say that, let me ask, do you think there are cultural differences in how people cope?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think those cultures are often shaped by the environment and resources. Um, a lot of people have to cope a certain way because they can't just go to a therapist. Um, so they are forced to either find a group that will listen to them or deal with a group that's not listening to them. That could lead to unhealthy ways to cope. And then you have other cultures where it's a freely known thing or a freely accessible thing to be able to go to a therapist and go, hey, this ain't feeling right today. What am I going to do? And they get their hands held. And their parents did the same thing. And parents before them did the same thing, or their parents are the therapists. The cultures are definitely hugely shaped by the resources available in them. And they are hugely shaped by the communities and how they tend to perceive things. Um, and I only mention that as a caveat because I want to emphasize that sometimes some people are just like, you'll be okay. They hit you with the you'll be okay. Some people say we'll pray, it's fine, but they never give them the opportunity to go, I don't think I'm going to be okay. So now I need to seek something outside of what I've known my whole life. So that's a whole other culture in itself. But and then what I've seen in the Army, and this is the first time I've seen a counselor on an Air Force base, saying how I'm not near an Army base. Um, but there's another culture where sometimes people are shunned from being able to see what we call behavioral health counselors. Um, so it isn't seen as so much a sign of strength, and it goes as far as the command offers it, and they go, hey, this is a resource available to you. And what I've heard several times before is just, yeah, they told me I could go, but they told me I got to go outside of this training, that class, this field exercise. I have to be here, and I got staff duty that week. And a lot of times, just a lot of responsibilities just cloud over the emphasis that needs to be placed on someone's mental health. So I'll say I could go on and on about the differences in cultures, but I'll say it's definitely shaped by the community and shaped by the resources at the end. And that's not even a limited list. So.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So how has your culture shaped how you dealt with trauma?
Oh, man. Well, I'll say, one, it had to be, for me, it came after a very huge breakdown for me personally. Um, I was so accustomed to muscling through the doubts and pushing through the grievances I may have had or the anxiety I may have developed. And you learn how to kind of become this machine that can just push through until one day it just collapsed. And the day it collapsed, I didn't even realize what it had happened to kind of trigger it. Didn't even realize I was being triggered by something. Kind of forced me to go sit down and talk to somebody literally that day. That day had become so, what do you call it? Obviously dark for me. And it had been brewing, but it came so fast and so quickly, kind of forced me to shift from the culture of being able to go, hey, I got to push through it. I'm strong. I can do this. I can do that. And then it forced me to go, I need some help outside of myself. And I'll say the culture that I seek now, and a lot of times a lot of people don't get the opportunity to choose what cultures they subscribe to, but the culture I subscribe to is one that facilitates my growth, my healing, and some support. And that's something I've had to abandon along the way. So I went from this point of, you'll be fine. Let's just say a prayer. We don't even have to talk about it. Let's say a prayer. Let's, sing a song. Let's walk out of this. We feel good for right now, but nobody actually addressed, hey, you got some trauma. And for me, it had to be something explosive. And I realized that for a lot of people, their triggers are different. And I remember, I think the month that I started seeing a counselor was the same. I think the first week of that month was the same time I ended up being diagnosed with PTSD. I was just like, PTSD? What do you mean? And at that time, I hadn't even gone to Afghanistan yet. So I remember acknowledging that and kind of having to process how they labeled the way I had dealt with things. You're not used to labels yet. You don't get used to labels when you thought nothing was wrong or you assumed nothing was wrong. And so that was the biggest thing. And so now, yeah, you can't be my friend unless you support us doing better for ourselves. It's not a one-way thing, but that's the kind of friendship I need. Those are the kind of family members that keep around, and it forces you to make hard decisions to go, hey, if we're not talking about having some ugly conversations and being able to go, all right, well, let's get you the resources after we have that ugly conversation. You don't even have to talk to me, but let's at least get you somewhere where you can talk to someone who knows how to handle this. And if that's not the culture for me, I don't think I could do well in the environment. So I'll say that it's not enough to be like, you're strong. There's a difference between identifying when you're just whining about something, and everybody knows what that is, when you're just like, it's just a complaint. But then there's this, hey, something's wrong, man. Like I've tried it your way. Let's go see if we can get some help. So that is something, it's a delicate balance. It's hard. And if you have friends, which I assume the average human does, be able to gauge when it's no longer a complaint and when it turns into something that may be grief manifesting in front of you. So I hope that answered the question.
It did. You hit a couple of points. Talk to me about, you said earlier, I needed help outside of myself. Mm-hmm. It sounds like it's this religious undertone of pray, sing, accept it, and move forward. Mm-hmm. It kind of sounds like you missed this step of, let me just be in that feeling for a moment and process and unpack that versus compartmentalizing it and put it somewhere. And then that little thing that we compartmentalize manifests and turns into something big that will eventually explode in front of our face.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a great point. A lot of things, especially for me, I grew up in a church like 3 days out of the week. And a lot of times we get so wrapped up in this notion of, it's not a notion, it's a great idea, it's a great thing for people to strive towards, but this idea of forgiving and kind of like forgetting in the process. And what that ends up turning into is what you said earlier, compartmentalizing. And we never actually process it the way we should have. What happens when we do that is a lot of times we carry the blame, we carry a guilt, we carry a shame because no one went and just, sometimes it's as simple as having someone who was aware of the circumstance turning around and going, hey, it's not your fault. It was never your fault. You did everything you were supposed to do. You miss all that when you go straight to prayer, say amen, and go home. You miss the opportunity to go remind somebody that, hey, you did the best you could with what you had. Um, this person was wrong, or you shouldn't have been exposed to that, and that's why you don't feel so good about it. There's a lot we do miss by just bowing our heads, getting back up, and being like, all right, I'll see y'all next week. I'll see y'all Wednesday. I'll see y'all Sunday. So that's where I kind of tend to split hairs. Um, I don't even want to discuss like the differences between the two. I just want to emphasize, hey, the need to sit down and go, yeah, you should be tired. You should feel tired. You've been dealing with this pain for a long time. You've been carrying this burden for a long time. Um, and sometimes that's what a lot of people need. They'll be surprised. The average person will be surprised at how simple it could be if someone just told them, that ain't your fault. Stop carrying that. Let's practice not carrying that. Let's practice some ways to stop carrying it. But it doesn't happen as frequently.
So for you, having to, grow up and learn, from your surroundings and others how to cope and deal with, trauma and grief, what were some unhealthy and healthy ways that you cope?
Ooh. Oh man. So I want to end on a positive note. So I'll say the unhealthy things. One of the things, like I spoke to labels. I remember being almost offended when my counselor at the time was like, so you're starting to dissociate. I was like, dissociate? And I was just like, man, what do you mean dissociate? What does that mean? I remember Googling it, and I didn't realize one of the things I had done to kind of escape what was going on around me. I would create an alternate reality for myself mentally. And that was just to give me a better feeling than what was going on in real life. And you kind of lose touch with what it is that you need to do. You lose the responsibility for furthering your healing. You just lose it in that process. That was what I thought was okay. And essentially, like, people talk about daydreaming all the time. People talk about going to a different space, which is why some people take trips, they go vacation, we escape. Apparently, I had taken it to a point where it was further than healthy. It was far from healthy because it kept me from actually addressing the anxiety disorders or any, grief or depression that I was dealing with. It kept me completely from doing that. And when it did show up, it was ugly. It was ugly. And I'm going to be the first person to tell you, nobody wants to see when my grief, depression, and anxiety decides to like show up. That includes me. It's ugly. So that was one of my most unhealthy things she had mentioned at the time. Another one was I would just sleep. And I remember even being a child, I would just want to sleep. I didn't want to do anything else. I just wanted to sleep. And those were my top two most unhealthy things that I had done. The healthier after being able to speak with a counselor, I was able to reassess the things that were occurring to me and around me and go, one, it's not always necessary to the first thing we always want to do is like put a face to the pain. And whether that be like either your parent or another family member or something you thought they could have done better, there's like this strong level of resentment you can have with other people or with yourself. And so I stopped doing that. I stopped feeling like, for me, I had to stop replaying over and over again and going like, I could have done this different. I could have done that different. I was a kid, man. Like I was like a kid, we were like 6, 7 at that time. How much do you expect children to do? So the healthy thing for me to turn around and be was just like, hey, why that wasn't your responsibility, nor was it your fault at that age. You weren't supposed to turn around and know better. You're still learning the world. So it kind of relieved a lot for me. And another way that my most recent therapist helped me with coping was creating what we consider a safe space. Now, the difference between when I was going to daydream and what she's creating, what she helped me create at this point was being able to create a space not attached to people. So not having like your favorite group of friends around in your like space. Say you go and imagine yourself breathing in ocean air, listening to waves, and something that calms the symptoms we're looking at right now. And she helped me develop that, and I've been employing it, and it's been surprisingly helpful because on the surface, I'm not gonna lie, when she first introduced it to me, I was like, that's the same thing as daydreaming. I said it for what it was. I said, it's the same thing as daydreaming. What's the difference? And, you know, I stopped bringing in the friends and family that I loved and the people I held close and dear to my heart. And it was just me. And I was capable of calming down the elevated heart rate, the elevated body temperature, um, stepping away from the anger so that I can go, okay, so why am I really angry? When I step out of that safe space, I go, okay, so this is what I'm really angry about instead of lashing out. So, and lastly, I'll say working out. So, working out was my thing. Instead of sleeping and deciding to just go dormant on the issues, I did something that was challenging enough but benefited my overall health without going, hey, I've left it alone. Because I did get back to the issue. I always get back to the issue. I don't abandon it. But sometimes you just got to calm down those immediate physical and emotional feelings you're feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my biggest focus, is just not ignoring them, but giving them a chance to be, but not allowing them to control everything afterwards, because that's what was happening. Um, I forgot who the quote was by, but it was 3 words. It said feel, deal, and heal, and that resonates with me. Does not leaving out the feeling part nor dealing with those feelings, but the ultimate goal is to heal. So I think I captured that pretty well. I think I did. Hopefully, I didn't like leave something out.
You did. You did. You captured it. You captured it very well, and I appreciate you for dropping like a couple of like tools. So I like that part of feel, deal, and heal. And you touched on some important aspects of healthy ways of coping. So like how we talked about the unhealthy, being angry, balling it up, manifesting, then sometimes exploding. Um, your your body and your mind will do everything to protect you.
Mm-hmm.
And so the disassociation, in some cases, it's just not remembering or the incident at all. And I mean, that's happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
And, the whole feeling of like, going to sleep, like your body will do whatever it can to protect you. And you have these emotional triggers and fires from the damage that the trauma and grief has caused that you need to be put out. And so some people have healthy ways that they deal with it. And it's starting to seem like for the ones that have had to learn on their own, you first learn some bad ways to deal with it, then self-correct and be like, okay, this is how I should deal with it. And so I appreciate you sharing that portion because I mean it makes sense. And to, you know, to go back to, you know, that quote, feel, deal, and heal, like that's true. So you're gonna feel shit happens around you, whether we want it to or not, bad things happen. And it's okay to acknowledge that and to acknowledge those feelings of, you know, of whatever you're going through, and then to deal with it. Just talk about that little portion right there, because we understand feeling, we understand it makes us angry, we understand, you know, it makes us sad, and then we understand healing, right? But the deal part, let's talk about the deal.
Oh man. So dealing with it for me is a day by day, step by step thing. And I'll preface it before I go into any long winded details about it. But one of my NTOs, I got to meet her mother and her grandmother during her promotion. And her grandmother said, she said, make sure you're always moving forward, even if you got a tiptoe. And so the reason why it sticks to me is because everybody always views progress as um, this exponential increase from where you were to where you're trying to go. They don't realize some days you're literally tiptoeing. Some people think you're sprinting towards that end goal you're going towards. And so that's how I handle my day-to-day dealings. Will I say that every day goes the way my therapist recommends it? Absolutely not. Will I say that to anybody who's seeking counsel? Absolutely not. I will never tell you to have this expectation of being able to just magically start to progress every day, and every day it's going to be this amount of progress. It never is. Some days you sit right back in that spot. And there's that patience you have to have with yourself. We give grace and understanding to everybody else, and a lot of times we just skimp on granting it to ourselves. So we have to turn around and go, you know, I didn't have that great of a day. Now, depending on how many hours you have left in that day, you can try and redeem it, or you can go, I'm not going to have 2 days like that in a row. So that's how it is for me. Some days, I kid you not, at the beginning of this assignment, even last year, I came back home. I reported here. I was the closest I have ever been to my hometown, and all I wanted to do was sit still, and I just wanted to sleep. That's all I wanted to do. I just wanted to sit tight, and I wanted to go back into that space, and I did a couple times. I did. And it took everything for me to be like, I need to find a new counselor. Let's go. You know, I'm in a new location. I need to find somebody else. Um, that's what true dealing with it is. It's never this, it's just like anybody who's trying to gain or lose weight. You don't gain every day. You don't lose every day. And even if you do, it's not the same 3 pounds you lost yesterday. It's just not. And the same thing I say for any issue. You got to be patient and go, okay, well, I messed up. I'm human. Well, let's turn around. I have to do that. And for me, so at one point, I call this an open kimono moment. At one point during my process of seeing counselors, you know, I was required to develop a safety plan and identify people that I could contact that would kind of, what's that? I don't have a term for it for people who don't know what an azimuth is, but correcting your azimuth and putting you back on path. I needed people to do that, and I had to identify 3 to 5 people, and that is a humbling experience. It's a humbling part of the experience is knowing when you hit that point and what you're going to do with that. And for me, 10 times out of 10, I need to call an outside resource. For me, I have to go, hey, battle, I got this going on. And they got to remind me of my goals. They got to remind me of how far I am, how to get back on my azimuth, and to keep going. And I'll say that's what dealing with things has been for me personally. I wouldn't doubt if that was the case for other individuals who've had to navigate their way out of um, trauma and negative coping mechanisms. I definitely say be patient, have the resources in play, make sure they understand what their role is.
Yeah.
Don't pick just anybody. Make sure you understand, like if you have a spiritual mother or father, make sure they understand what that is for you, and how seriously that responsibility is taken. It's kind of like godparents. You don't pick just anybody. So that's what dealing with it has been for me. Not beating myself up when I do not make as much progress as I saw fit. Stepping away from wanting to control the outcome so much, um, was that's my overarching theme. When trauma hits, some people want to plan and plan and plan and plan to avoid things, and things still happen. So having patience with those things that are still happening and adjusting fire. So that's what I recommend.
I like this. I like this. So this correct the azimuth is something new, right? That I've heard. I haven't heard it expressed this way, and so that's dope. You hit some really good points. When you were talking earlier, when you was like, some days are harder than others. When you go through and you have this expectation of yourself and on your life, uh, it brings you down even more when you didn't meet those. And so to just acknowledge, and like your grandma said, it's okay even if you're tiptoeing forward, and grandma's like, hey.
Look, they make it to that point for a reason. That's a blessing.
Exactly. And so, that grandma dropped some knowledge right there. Move forward even if you're tiptoeing. And some days it is just waking up and taking a deep breath,
Mm-hmm.
and just taking a moment, to relax. And I even started to do this with my kids because, as I'm sitting here and I'm asking people, well, hey, did your parents teach you how to deal with trauma and grief? I'm like, I'm gonna have some hard times. Like, I need to go give them some tools and tidbits as well. And so we practice gratitude more than anything, and gratitude of just the very small things of,
Yeah.
as at least the starting point of your day, or you just having to reset and have another beginning. I won't say a new beginning, but when you get knocked down and you got to get yourself back up and dust off, right? You appreciate of the little things first, and then gain that ground and momentum as you go. And so I appreciate Grandma for dropping
Yeah,
this.
look, that's a good one too. I mean, I left that completely out. I'll say I've gotten to the point where I have to start my day off with affirmations. And that was something I hadn't practiced, and got to the point. That's kind of what got me out of the funk at this location, was being able to go, all right, you know what? Even though I feel like this, I know what I am. Even though I feel like it's going this way, I know what the outcome will be. Even though it doesn't seem that way. It's not lying to yourself. Um, it's a way of acknowledging the good and the bad, knowing that the bad is temporary. I'll say that, and that's a great practice, is that gratitude. A lot of people, I do it too, leave that piece out because there are things to be grateful for. We tend to hone in on what gives us the strongest amount of emotion. But if you're an emotional person, there's some good things that can give you the same strength or even more strong or stronger emotion anyway. So, um, I definitely think that's a great practice to introduce to children, because it's just, we don't, you see it. I know you see it all around us, socially, um, online, on TV. I mean, everyone would give you all the reasons to hate the world around you, but forget to remind you of the reasons to love where you are. And that's something, it's critical. It is critical. It's not always about where it hasn't been. And that's something that brother, my attorney brother, um, he he's always been great at. He's always been great at. And I call him before I commit to anything, as a result, because he kind of gives me the perspective of the positive things that can happen. Not where, like, even for this call, for this interview, um, I'll say, like, I called my brother. I was like, hey, man, what do you think about this opportunity? He was just like, why not? You know, he said, you have a lot to say. You know, he gave me that. He's one of those people, right, that encourages me for the things and reminds me of the good direction things could go into. Just like back in college, back in high school. It's like, okay, you might not get in, but you definitely won't get in if you don't apply.
Right.
And it's just always those things for him. And he's a realist in that regard. He's always going, yeah, but like, you got it, Myea. What are you talking about? So he's always been that. And I guess going back to like your question when you asked about the parents, not so much the parents, but that brother, I'll tell you, he definitely, I don't know what he had in him, what he has in him now that allows him to turn around and make sure, you know, I'm putting myself in the best, or posturing myself in the best way possible. He's always done that. He's
Yeah.
always done that, you know. So there's that. I mean, he's a good brother.
I'm quite sure you're probably going to hit him up after this, and you know.
He's probably gonna say good job. Knowing him, because he's the motivational speaker and all that stuff out of all of us. He's the one. He's just, you know,
Yeah.
he's always been like that. So it's like odd for me to turn around and be like, hey, bro, like down to even financial decisions. I'm like, hey, bro, so what do you think about such and such? He's like, ah. So he's always been that, and I definitely think it pays so much in the long run to have somebody in your corner like that. It doesn't always have to be parents.
Yeah, you definitely you hit the nail on the head. To have wise counsel amongst you,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
and no matter where you're at in life, whether you're at the bottom of the totem pole or at the top,
Mm-hmm.
it pays to have wise leadership. And you know, it's also a humbling thing in that asthma check, you know, as you will, not just for yourself, but for how you are going to impact the people around you. And so, you know, that's a very good point to bring out. I wanted to talk about this asthma check, right?
Mm-hmm.
Correcting the asthma, because I want to get into how can you help yourself. And so when you were talking about the asthma check and calling these different people, you know, to correct you, I mean, what was the trigger for you to be like, oh shit, you know, I'm staring off. Let me call my battle buddies to, you know, to help get me back on track.
Um, I'll definitely say what the trigger has been is when I find myself sitting in a negative space for longer than I should, when my safe space isn't doing it. So I'm one of the people who, it's kind of like a snowball effect. If I don't catch myself soon enough, next thing you know, I'm down a hill surrounded by a bunch of snow that some deer peed on. I don't know. Like, not even good snow. It's like used snow. And so it's not even, you know, like it could just get worse. It only gets worse from there. And when I realized I sat there for way too long and I'm not even making, or I don't even feel the energy, feel like expending the energy towards getting out of that space. That's what will happen to me. I will sit there and it'll be from just one event. And then next thing you know, that event is wearing the negativity of my entire life immediately. It could just, what's that word? Catastrophize itself into such a negative space. And what I've learned now is when I've spent more than half a day in that space, which is far too long, but that's just me trying to kid myself about my ability to come out of it. If I spent more than half a day, I need to call somebody. I need to start calling people and be like, hey, this isn't working right now. Like right now, I'm not even capable of redirecting my thoughts. And I'm trying to think of the most recent. I can most recent. I ended up having to go through some legal stuff, not for myself, but having to speak on someone's legal issues. And I remember it had stirred up a lot of emotion, and I was just anxious the entire week. And I remember I called one of my girlfriends, and she was one of the people on my list. And I told her, she knows like the phrase, I'm like, I'm gonna go buy some cigarettes. And she's like, what? No. And she calls immediately. At the time, she was in Europe, calls immediately. She knows exactly what that means. It's like, what's going on? And she's like, but you know what? It's gonna be all right. You're gonna be able to speak with courage. You're gonna be able to communicate everything. Don't allow anybody's attacks on your character to penetrate your mind. She has to reinforce the things that I need to go into, because a lot of my anxiety at this point kicks in anticipation for something. And a lot of times we just base it on just patterns, whatever. And that's what I was dealing with that week. And I remember I said, man, I'm going to go buy some cigarettes. She was like, what do you need to buy cigarettes for? And, she started off in such a lighthearted tone, but she knows, no, let's see what you got going on, because you don't need cigarettes. You don't need, like what a lot of people turn to are like drugs and things like that. They're like, you don't need that. You don't need that. And a lot of times that's what we want to seek, because it's so much easier. It is so much easier to go like, let me go take 2 shots. Let me take 2 shots immediately. I should be fine. It feels better. I don't have to go through the ugly part of actually addressing it. And that's where my friends kick in. It's not even ugly anymore to me. I used to consider it like a distasteful action to take part in, but it is beautiful because I know what it's feeding into. I know it's feeding in my ability to turn around and be that friend for somebody else, or be in a peaceful mental state. So I'll say that I think is an example of how we corrected the azimuth in that scenario. She definitely had to remind me of, well, yeah, they're going to try it, but like, what does that mean to you? And it kind of like deflating your anxiety. It just deflates every thought that you have and the power you give to it. Because we give so much power to those things, and she just like hopping each one of them. I just imagine her being like, boop, okay, so you're worried about them attacking your character. What's the next one? Okay, let's pop that one. Matter of fact, we'll just take the knot out of this one. We'll let that one just deflate itself. And that's a visual representation of how those conversations go. They kind of just kill each of those thoughts one by one. And we just take it one thought at a time. But it requires me to be humble enough to share those thoughts. It requires me to share it and share it honestly, and know that they won't use that against me. So that's the biggest thing. It's a 2-part thing. It's one thing to have battle buddies, but you got to be able to use them, and you got to be honest enough with yourself to know, 1, that you need them, and 2, that you're going to be honest brokers about where you are. And that's what that looks like. We get back on path. I was able to go testify on that board and be like, yeah, blah 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 blah, and everything was fine. Everything worked out. When I say fine,
Yeah.
I don't even know what I was worried about for, but
look, so you have coined a term when dealing with anxiety, and I'm going to use this until the day I die. Don't go sit in the deer pit snow. don't sit in the pissy deer snow.
Don't.
When,
Just stinks.
when I'm in a funk, I'm gonna tell myself, don't sit in the pissy deer snow. Get up.
Nope. At least get some fresh snow if you're gonna snowball.
Right.
At least get some fresh snow if you're gonna snowball. Like, don't snowball and then
and I mean, I like how you put all of this, right? So for a person to self-recognize, and you know, it's funny, but it also it helps. Don't pissy deer snow, you know, makes you think about, all right, well, what the hell am I doing? Let me get up. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, you put a time limit to it as well. You said for you, you know, if it's half a day that you're going thinking about this, feeling this way, call on your battle buddies. And with that, you have to be honest to use your battle buddies and honest that, you know, you need them. And I know on the backside, you know, which the other part, you know, we were going to talk about was having battle buddies that are not judgmental and that will allow you to be you and allow you to deal with what you're going through. And like you said, help you see the path that you're walking, even if you're having to tiptoe forward, like Grandma said.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's, man, when you pick those friends, know the ones that, you know, I'll say, like you said, don't be judgmental. We'll be honest with you in love, and they won't change their status with you as a result of something. Mm-hmm. That's been key. And a lot of, I mean, my brother, he can't change his status with me. Unfortunately for him, he's stuck. He is. But the other two people on that list, it's just like, hey, you know, they have, and I made sure I vetted it with them. I said, how do you feel about this? I want you to be honest with me and let me know when it's too much for you. That's the reason why I have a list. I don't have to call you every time. And that's just a part of being human, knowing one another's limits, because sometimes they may be going through something. And it's a beautiful thing when somebody asks you those things, but it also requires you to know when your line needs to be drawn, because sometimes we carry things and we don't have the capability to turn around and go, all right, I got you. Come on. What you got? Without you sounding cynical, without you sounding like you're being just like, you're pushing them along. You got your own issues. There's that thing. And I appreciate that list so much because of it, because it gives me the ability to not, I don't want to say burden someone, but I don't want to become that. I don't want to become this weight for them or this thing where I only call them for when things are going bad. We have twice as many good conversations as we do those types. And because of the work I do outside of those conversations. But yeah, I definitely say, somebody tells you that, like, think long and hard before you agree to it, because those conversations can get really almost, I don't know, have you ever watched a child just get mad at something? You're just like, well, why are you mad? And you're just like, because you won't let me touch the stove. And you're just like, well, you know, you have to kind of talk that through for them so they understand it a little bit better, or something even more where you just like my niece went through a phase where, you know, he felt like she was hurting you when she corrected her. It's like this, well, don't do that. And you're just like, why are you sad? Because I didn't make you happy. And it's just like, well, no, it's not about, you know, making me happy. I just want you to be safe, because it's something like jumping on the bed and I can't always be there to catch you. Something simple like that. And it sounds so simple to parents a lot of times. And I feel like the conversation is the same way for my friends when I'm talking to them. They're just like, man, this is so simple. Why don't you see? You're going to be fine. And so it's just being willing to have that conversation with an adult. Because we stopped having conversations at about 12, 13, we're just like, no, man, you figured it out. Once you learn how to fix your own pancakes, heat up your own meals, you should be fine. A lot of times parents, not parents, but kids get left behind to get more independent. And it just doesn't stop being prepared to have a conversation with somebody who's your age, somebody who's older than you.
And so before we kind of like transition into the next part, I want to go back to it's one aspect of it. So for the asthma check and for the people that you have on your list, I like that you have a safe word, a safe phrase. I'm about to smoke a cigarette or about to go buy some cigarettes. And just having that, being able to allow you guys to, one, acknowledge indirectly that, all right, something's up, and then to kind of ease into, that conversation. The part that I really wanted to hit on, and you kind of spoke to it, but not directly, was this familiarity in a person dealing with their experience. And so we're creatures of habits. Mm-hmm. And so if you go through a traumatic experience or through grief and you don't know how to deal with it, you tend to fall back on things that are familiar to you, even if they're bad or destructive behaviors. Mm-hmm. Fall back to something that's familiar because that's what you know. Mm-hmm. So I just wanted to speak to that aspect, because when you're dealing with stuff, when you are trying to become better, understanding that, the creature of habit side in you is going to say, hey, well, this is your familiar ground, do that. Mm-hmm. It is a destructive behavior. And so you have to have the courage and the intestinal fortitude and the will to fight that. That's why they say habits form, over a 30-day period. It's not nothing that's formed overnight. So you have to constantly work to overcome them destructive behaviors.
Yeah. One of my favorite TV shows, one time was Hoarders. I don't know if you've ever watched Hoarders. Have you watched the people come in, like the mental health counselors come in and help them kind of like determine what to keep, what to give away? Yeah. I bring up that show because I want to draw parallels. A lot of people develop the habit to keep so much out of survival. And when you look at how people typically process trauma and deal with grief, they survive through it. And so with that, they pick up things that help them live until the next day. They don't pick up things that help them, mature mentally or emotionally. We just figure out how to live until the next day. And I draw the parallel with a lot of those cases. The hoarder in those homes end up in that space where they've been homeless before, and they felt like they need to keep all the food that they could keep, or keep all the clothes they've ever had. They cross the threshold of the door. They've kept all of that stuff, and it ends up looking like this mess. And that's why mentally it's so hard to detach from it, because that's what they associate with survival. I mean, I've seen it with parents. One of my parents, I ain't gonna say which one, but one of my parents, every time they see a sale on any kind of food, it could be food that they don't eat, but it's a food. And you're just like, why is this in the pantry? And it's just like, just in case, it's always this just in case. It's always this just in case it's just in case you end up in a position where you have to survive all over again. And next thing you know, you have this pantry full of things, you have a home full of things that you are unwilling to depart with. It's the same thing with behaviors. We pick up all these things because we need to survive, and it's so hard to detach from them because it got us to where we are now. It got us to exactly where I am. Before a counselor, before I realized I had trauma, I'm alive now. What's wrong with it? What's wrong with it? And that's the number one question we ask ourselves. What's wrong with it? And I definitely agree um, with the coping mechanisms developing so strongly up to that point. But I think it comes from a place, not even a but. I know that it comes from a place of survival instead of, hey, this actually like worked and I don't have to go back and revisit it. It's always this survival. It's just like, it's almost every case with those hoarders. It's just like, hey, I had this going on. I went through a bad divorce. I lost somebody very important to me. And that was a trigger. And that's how they cope with it. And all of a sudden they got 50 cats. Some of them are dead in a pile of whatever, but they got them. So it's definitely something to be said about surviving through things instead of actually processing them the way you need to. And that was a key from my counselor. It was like, well, yeah, you made it this far, but let's be honest, when you hear certain phrases, do you actually respond the right way? And I'm like, no, not all the time. And that was one of the things we had to address. It's like, I don't always respond the right way. At one point, I got tired of being around my formation because of it. So,
with that being said, what was the toughest part of your journey?
ooh, toughest part was being told that I needed one. Well, the not even being told, but being not being told that I needed help, but being late, having a label for it. Um, I walked out probably by the end of the initial 30 days with a diagnosis for PTSD, generalized anxiety disorder, depression, and Stockholm. I walked out with 4 disorders attached to my file, right? And it was hard because 3 of them I wouldn't have expected. Looking back, I should have, but that was really hard for me because immediately I began to wonder how many people saw that, how many people could see that, what would happen as a result of them seeing it. Would somebody in the command be like, I got a kook for a captain or something? I immediately started thinking about it's funny. The hardest part was based on how people would perceive those labels. And I look at it, it doesn't bother me as much because I put too much weight on perceptions. But those are my immediate thoughts. It was hard. I remember I was so emotional. I remember asking my boss, like, hey, sir, I need to take off today because I'm at the brink of like just crying in front of everybody anyway. So can I take off? And, just for the second half of the day. And he was like, yeah, whatever, you sure you good? I was like, sir, please don't ask me no questions because if you do, I'm gonna cry. And that's how it came down to. It was the day I got diagnosed because there's a difference between knowing that something may be wrong and then having somebody tell you with an official diagnosis. Mm-hmm. And for some reason the weight of it was tough. It was tough, and part of me didn't want to accept it. Part of me felt like everybody could see it. Everybody couldn't. Newsflash, everybody couldn't. It was just me. And it took me a minute to come out of that space. And when I say a minute, I'll say about 60 days where mentally I detached from every sense of responsibility for myself. I did. I detached. And it was just like, all right, Myea, you still got a job that's still going. So I have no idea outside of why the diagnosis hit me so hard. Besides these people, I felt like everybody just knew. But it was the best thing that could have happened because I took some actual real steps. I got to educate myself. Um, that is what was missing. Knowing that things get you in a funk is one thing, but knowing what comes with it from researching helps a ton. Um, I think just combining every resource possible worked to help me have not so much shame in it. And it's like, for some reason, I don't know why I gravitated towards a shame. I have no clue. That'll be something I'll find out like 50 years from now or something. I don't know. But it's just like, why am I so shameful? But I remember just feeling embarrassed that I guess other people could, it was so apparent from talking to a counselor that they could put those things together about me. And I didn't get to choose the labels. I didn't get to choose which one I wanted. It was like, no, they told me. So it was the hardest part was being told that. And I've since moved past it. I don't make it. I don't. What do you call? I don't walk into a new command office and be like, "Hey, sir, just want you to know, like, hey, ma'am, just want you to know I got this stuff going on." I don't at all. The only people who need to know have access to my file. But if any of my friends or anybody I could help, ask. It's out there. It's fine. It's fine. I mean, it helps people to know, like, even though I may post positive things on Facebook or something, like, I got stuff going on and I'm dealing with it. And if you want to find out how I'm dealing with it, find out.
Right.
I'm
And everybody do, and I appreciate you sharing that and being open, because we all got shit going on. We all, nobody's perfect. And like you said earlier, you it weighs on you internally that you think everybody sees it, and sometimes they don't. And then the other good part that you spoke on was researching, learning. Your body is going to go through things, you're going to feel certain things, and you're not going to know what it is that you're feeling. And because you don't know, you're not going to be able to process it. And so once you take the time to research, to learn it, to get that understanding, then you can define what that is and then put a game plan to dealing with it and overcoming it. And so I like how you said that, and the fact that you're just, the other part is you're open and honest about who you are. You're not hiding it, but at the same time, you don't have to go flaunting it either.
Yeah, that's yeah, I don't want to be one of those. I think that's just being extra anyway. You'll find out.
Yeah,
You know.
that's and I will say that that is a good point about leadership, is one, allowing yourself to be vulnerable, but also in a capacity to where you care for others because you want to see them succeed.
Mm.
And so, man, you're an awesome leader in my book.
Oh, man.
Okay. Um, what kept you going when you wanted to give up?
A TD Jake sermon. If I can find the name of it, actually, it's probably saved on my phone. I can send it to you. It's funny, a TD Jake sermon. I'll just brush over the sequence of these events. But I remember it was a really bad day for me, extremely bad day. And I remember wanting to, I don't know why, I wanted to drive into a lake. Have no clue. Um, and I didn't anticipate it. I was on the way to work. And I remember it just escalated very fast. And it's commonplace for me to listen to TD Jakes in the mornings, his podcast. And during that sermon, kid you not, he talked about when he had lost, his mother and all that stuff. He felt like he wanted to drive into a lake. And for some reason, I'm one of those people, call me crazy. One of those people that thinks things don't happen for no reason. There's a reason for everything that happens around me. And with him mentioning that about halfway through that sermon, um, felt like it wasn't my time to go drive into a lake at all. Was it my time? Was it the way it was supposed to happen? Nope. And that was for me my sign to like stop whatever actions that I had planned in such a short amount of time. Um, and I take that and go forward with a different sense of purpose. That day, I felt as if I decided to stop letting things like just happen to me. It felt like things were happening to me, um, and really moving in my purpose. And that was a difference for me to not slide into this mentality that like, it always happens to me. Like this always happens and this always happens. And there is no power that I give myself in those statements. And not saying I'm power hungry, but I usurp every ounce of capability that I was born with, that I developed, that all of that when I give it away to whatever happenstance, circumstance happened or whatever. Just I really just give it away. And I had to stop doing that day. So I determined to start moving with purpose. Um, and to stop seeing the world as this place where things happen to Myea. Had to see the world as this place for me to impact positively. And the things that have happened, they were part of my success story too. We always like acknowledge all the good things, but so are the bad things. And you can help other people with that. So I just stopped. I stopped that day. I was like, stop,
Yeah.
quit. And
Well,
here I am talking to
with,
people.
with, with that being said, the journey, the process to heal, you tend to hurt people. And so, the old saying, hurt people hurt people.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about how do people make amends?
Ooh. How do people make amends that have been hurt or people that hurt other people? If so, for example, like if I hurt somebody, how do I make amends with that person?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I just had to make sure. For that, I'll say it was difficult for me to navigate, specifically for a few family members. I had to turn around and go, and it was crazy. I couldn't dictate the time. I could not dictate the scenario. That was the first thing, is not trying to control either one of those variables. But being able to take the opportunity when it was present, having a conversation, not necessarily explaining yourself, but apologizing specifically for the things that you did to hurt someone. One of the hardest things is it's easy when you think about the concept, but it's hard to deliver, because in a world where canceling and blocking people is almost like a trend, or is a trend, it's hard to be seen as genuine when you speak to somebody. And being able to initiate it, that was in every scenario where I've had to go back and apologize for some things I've said or the way I've acted. I always initiated it, which I think I'm getting pretty good at these days. Initiating that conversation and saying, hey, I apologize for making you feel this way, and this way when I did whatever I did. I've yet to have had a conversation where, one, they didn't accept my apology, as a result, because it takes a lot. It really does. And it's I don't even know how to explain. It's like, it's not a knot in your chest, but there's this It's like it doesn't want to come up, but it comes out. You're just like, it's got to come out. I got to apologize. Even though I was hurt, I got to apologize. And you go, you explain a little bit, but you make sure not to make excuses for why you hurt somebody. That's the biggest thing I focus on, is not making an excuse for why I did something. I go, hey, I was hurt, but that does not excuse anything that I said or did to you. So that's one of the key things, apologizing. And almost every time, to be honest, it's like a dual apology kind of conversation, because they go, I'm sorry that I reacted that way, or I'm sorry that, you had felt this, because I didn't know this was leading up to that. And but going into it without expectation of an apology. I don't apologize to anybody expecting them to return one to me. I just hope they have like the grace to keep me in their lives and let me access whatever they allow me to access. And so that's the biggest thing, is making sure when you do apologize, don't be like, whoa, my feelings was hurt. Like, no, it's not about you today. It's not about you. It's about what you did to a person. And that helps keep the conversation honest, and it helps keep you from sounding like you're making an excuse for yourself. Um, and so far, like, I've had to have a few of those. Um, and it's a delicate thing, knowing who, and like I said, the timing and that place, because there are a couple of folks I would love to have a conversation with. It's just not the time, it's not the setting, and I'm not going to force it. That's one thing. I don't want to force a thing, and
Yeah,
I trust it to happen.
I got you. Okay, no, that's good. That's good. That's really good. Um, Not to force, forgiveness. Like you said, that there is a time and a place for everything, and everybody has to move and heal in their own way. And so some people may not be ready for that. But the biggest portion is to forgive yourself so that you can, press forward. So I like how like
Yeah,
that.
it ain't pretty.
It ain't pretty. It ain't pretty. Look, don't sit in the pissy deer snow. Just
I'm just saying, it could be worse. If you're a snowball, that's all I'm gonna say.
okay. Well, what caused you to correct your destructive behaviors?
Um, Being hurt to the point where I just didn't want to do anything. When I realized everything I'd done was just not it. That's the phrase the kids say. This ain't it. Like it just wasn't it. Um, yeah, somebody hurt my feelings big time, and I remember being like, "This really hurt my feelings, and I really don't want to talk to people as a result." And it was a sequence of events that occurred shortly after that, um, where my faith really showed up and showed out. Not my personal faith, but like um, my faith as a believer, um, where God really showed up and showed out for me. Literally, shortly after those events, that trigger, it was like, man, my feelings are hurt real big time, and like I don't even want to talk to my best friend right now. And literally, I think the next 3 days after that were filled with so much of a reminder for who I should place my faith in, who I should trust in, um, that I had no choice but to turn around and stop any destructive behaviors and stop speaking the way I spoke. Um, I remember in the middle of that, I was like, I don't want to curse anymore. Just random stuff that I woke up one day, I think it was a Tuesday, and I was just like, no, I'm done. Not to say that I ever thought it was a bad thing, but I just didn't have the desire to speak that way at that point. And I remember it was just the most random things where I gave up so many behaviors
Yeah.
after. So, woo,
Do you think a person has to wait until they're at rock bottom to make a change?
no, I would recommend against it. I would recommend against it, but everybody's changing point is different.
Mhm.
Um, just like I would say to my younger brothers, I don't want you to go through like a quarter of the things I went through. Just like any parent says to their children, they don't want their children to experience any of the hardship they experience. Everybody turns around at their own on their own timeline and with their own triggers. And I've even said it to friends. I've even felt like I had to lock friends in cages because of it. And I'm just like, man, I need you to stop, you know? And at the end of the day, they had to hit a rock bottom for them. Do I want it for them? No, because I love them. Like, you don't want anybody to go through that kind of stuff. I don't think anybody wakes up and says, you know what, something's gonna put me on my butt today.
Yeah.
You know, then I'll turn around. Like, no, they think they're fine. They keep going. Like me. I was fine, kept going until something catches your attention. Hopefully it isn't rock bottom. For a lot of people it is. So is it a requirement? If you can help it, please don't get there because it's not, there's nothing sexy about rock bottom. I don't see anything like, I mean, it helps. The only good part is if you make something positive out of it, you get to move. But if you can avoid it, please, for the love of all things positive, avoid the bottom. So I
Yeah.
don't know.
Well, let's talk about help. So when you went to get counseling, did the race, gender, and background of your counselor matter?
Yes. Specifically, I remember I told them the first day, I said, I do not want a male counselor. I remember that day. And I remember them scrambling to go, okay, well, let us get somebody for you. And it mattered for me because my issue at the time was associated with a guy. So for me, I didn't even want that scenario. The point to where I've transformed to this point, absolutely, I'm fine. At that time, I wasn't having it. I remember the first day I walked in and they had, I mean, I looked at his credentials in his office and I did not doubt that he was qualified to assist me without any bias or anything. And a matter of fact, I think he was a product of Xavier down near Louisiana, and outstanding credentials. And I remember I looked at him. I was just like, "Hey, can I get a counselor who's a woman?" And so it mattered for me. Like I said at the time, I did not. It's crazy. I tell people all the time. It's funny how I transitioned in life. I have 4 brothers. I went to the academy. At the time, it was 85% male. I joined a profession where it was still majority male. And at that point in my life, it like clicked. And I did not want to even be around my own, my own blood at that point. Unfortunately, we weren't co-located, but didn't even want to. So and that was just an association
Mm-hmm.
uh, with the gender. So now I'll be fine.
Gotcha.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, and the only reason I ask is because this whole thing is around culturally sensitive therapy. If your therapist looks like you or have been through similar experiences you've been through, will the treatment be, will it be a deeper connection and the treatment be more effective? And
Absolutely. Yeah, I can see the value in that. I can see the value 100%. I was trying to get a black woman at best, best case scenario. I remember, and I guess she was so highly requested. They couldn't even bring her in the office for me. But I could see the value in it. I don't want to take away from anybody who doesn't share that experience with me, because when you are military, you get so used to changing counselors, you kind of get accustomed to having to let them review your file and start from a new space all over again. You get kind of used to that. If I had a choice, I'd keep the same counselor all the way through. She would be another woman. I mean, probably the same woman I started with, but But yeah, I think there's a huge amount of value in being able to see yourself in a counselor. If you don't, it's a teeter. I want to tread carefully with saying that, but I say don't doubt somebody just because they don't have that connection with you. Because you'll be surprised, is what I mean by that. Like you will be surprised at what connection there is to be had. So
Got you. I appreciate you sharing that. What advice would you give your younger self?
stop second guessing everything. Stop second guessing everything. You have more than enough. You're more than enough. Stop thinking you got to build up on the resume. Perfection is an evil in itself. It is. It's a distraction at best. Um, that's something I would tell my younger self to just let go of. Let go of. And I had always been that child. My peers in high school would say I was always this is gonna sound very, very, very what do you call that?
Cliche?
No, it's gonna be across the line, but I'm gonna use the phrase they used to say. They used to say, "Myea, you are a parent's wet dreams." Because, and that's the phrase they use. Everything my mom told me to do, I did. And everything like my friends' parents told them to do, I made sure my friends did. And it was just like, man, you do everything that you're supposed to. And still, I had to go process some trauma, doing everything you're supposed to do. But for some reason, I felt like in the back of my head, like as long as I did everything I was supposed to, it would keep me from certain scenarios. And it's just wrong. It's
Yeah.
wrong. On top of that, it distracts you from being able to be like free. Step away from perfection, step away from giving everybody what they say you should do, trying to present the best product possible, be you. So that's what I would say.
Do you
100%.
see your growth?
I'm sorry?
Do you see your growth?
Yeah. I do. I would not be talking to you right now if I hadn't had the opportunity to really reprocess a lot of things in life. If I did not have the opportunity to, I don't think I would have been able to speak to you, my friends, my parents. I've had to have the conversation with the parents, and it was tough. I wouldn't have seen that 10 years ago at all. I would have been like, no, I'm not having this conversation. Um, and in just my friendships and relationships, just being able to um, trust somebody to want what's best for you in return, and giving them the space to do that. Because a lot of times we're just like, no, I got it, I got it, I got it, I got it. Like we talked about earlier, like doing things on your own, just like I got it, I got it, I got it. And part of a relationship is being able to grant somebody the ability to help you or do something for you or be there for you. Big, 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 big difference. I remember like almost cursing my youngest brother out because he was like, let me carry those bags. I was like, man, you ain't carried my bags since I was, you've never carried my bags. What are you talking about? Just simple things like that. But giving somebody else to like the ability to show you that you are important to them too. Not always holding the responsibility on your own. And that's down to just my brothers, my friends, anybody. Like if they really, really care about you, they're gonna trust me. You just gotta give them the space to. You can't do it all yourself. So, and it's fun. It's fun now. I thought it was a nightmare back then, but it's fun.
All right, well, look, we're getting ready to wrap up. How can we get in touch with you? What are some of the efforts that you're doing that you want to share?
Right now, I am in the middle of establishing a YouTube page. I target like the younger girls, younger Black girls, but any girl is possible. is any girl is invited. And it's called Crown Me. And reason why we initiated this YouTube page is because I remember doing a Google search once upon a time looking for, pageant contestants or any royalty that had worn any crowns that allowed the girls to don their natural tresses. And I couldn't find any outside of the young girl who just won in South Africa, but she was shaved completely. What that page is aimed towards is reinforcing a confidence building mindset towards younger girls and women. That's what it's targeted towards. So again, it's Crown Me. I have recently started an effort on Facebook to just have a conversation about tough topics, creating a safe space to conduct those tough topics, from racial divisions all the way to leadership challenges. That is something else we've decided to do. In that one, you'll see it's called PEACE, but it's an acronym. So you'll see that coming forward. But those are the two efforts that I've been pursuing since I've had a little bit more time on quarantine. So two groups, and if anybody knows any efforts, and I've already kind of jumped into a few with some nonprofits locally, any efforts that are focused on pouring into the youth in our community, especially those teens where they tend to get abandoned in their independence. That's where I love to like turn around and participate in. And part of that is just, I think it's critical. I think it's needed, but if anybody else knows anything they could like throw out there, I'm down. I'm always moving, even with my brother. He's president of the 100 Black Men chapter in his city nearby. And any young boy I run into, I'm like, hey, go over there, and they teach them a lot of things. They get a lot of mentorship with the males in their communities across the Southeast or across the country. So yeah, those are two efforts. We'll see how they grow into fruition. I am not a stranger to jumping onto anybody else's cause either, because it's just, why reinvent the wheel? They're already doing so.
Well, look, I appreciate you for sharing and for coming on in that whole nine. Man, it's been wonderful. You definitely
likewise
things in my toolkit. Look, all y'all out there, look, don't sit in the pissy deer snow.
Please don't.
But look, any last words of encouragement or words of wisdom you'd like to share before we get off?
Just the only thing I'll say, I forgot who it was, but whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. Okay. I think that might be Henry Ford. And the last one is, if you were always trying to be normal, you will never know how amazing you can be. Continue to shoot for the stars. And that's from Myea Angelou. And I will always tell everybody to just don't get so caught up in the trends. Do you? We need one of you. The universe saw fit to have one of you here. And I would love to see whatever it is that you do. So
there we go. Well, this is Myea Rice and Greg. We are signing out with guards down, telling everyone to stay safe, stay focused, and stay engaged.
Yeah.
That's it for this week's episode of Guards Down. We are counting on you to join us in the mission of spreading awareness about trauma and complicated grief. Be sure to give us an honest review, subscribe, and share with someone this could help. Catch you next week.